Hey folks, Scott Walters here at another rainy day at the Bulletproof Garage, and we are working on Project Brutus again. For those of y'all who aren't familiar with Brutus, here he is right here. That's our 1987 Ford F-350 Crew Cab Long Bed Diesel Dually 4x4 Conversion Field Find Project Truck. So what we're working on today is the cylinder heads. This is part 2 of the 7.3 IDI turbo diesel engine build, all right? We're gonna do 4 things today. Number 1, we're doing a valve job right here in the driveway with some Neway Manufacturing cutters. From there, we're going to lap the valves. Then we're going to install some valve seals. And then we're going to take those off and install some other valve seals. And finally, we're going to assemble the cylinder heads, all right? So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Here in the Bulletproof Garage. Okay, now it's time to open up the valve guides a little bit, all right? So as a reminder, the guides were too tight because somebody before I bought this engine had already rebuilt it, and instead of installing new valve guides, they just reamed out the existing valve guides by about 15 thousandths, and then they installed valves with oversized stems. The problem is that the clearance was too tight, less than 1,000th on some of the valves, all right, where they really should be anywhere from 1 to 5 thousandths, right? So from the factory, they left with about 2 thousandths of clearance, just a tad over, all right? And the max spec is 5.5 thousandths, all right? So we're going to bring them to about 3 thousandths of clearance. And we're going to use this valve guide reamer. So this is from K-Line. And look, folks, I know some of you are starting to twitch already because they see me doing, y'all see me doing valve guide work with a hand drill. This is a piloted reamer, all right? So it's self-centering. So this is not a hack job, all right? We're doing this right. So this is a very simple process, and we're just opening them up a tad, maybe another 1,000th or so. So it's only going to take a second with each one, all right? So I've got my reamer on a hand drill, and this is the fluid they recommended to use with it, all right? So this is a cutting fluid or something along those lines. You obviously want to make sure that you're perpendicular here, that you're not creating any sort of pressure or force at a lateral angle. Okay, I'm not speeding this up either. I mean, this just takes a few seconds per guide. All right, that's it. What'd that take? About a minute? All right, let's finish the job. Now we've got a ball hone on the drill, all right? So this is a 240 grit ball hone. It's from Brush Research. And all we're gonna do is we're gonna pass once in and out of each valve guide, all right? We're doing that to deburr the valve guide since we just reamed them, all right? And we're also leaving a little bit of a crosshatch that helps with oil retention, all right? So let's get started. All right, you want to make sure the hone is moving before you put it inside the valve guide. It can be a little tricky. All right, just like that. I've also swapped to honing oil. I suspect it's the same stuff, but anyway. All right, all done. Okay, and looking at the valve seats here, it's obvious that we need a valve job, all right? So these are done already, but let's focus on these right here. First, on the intake, you can see the remnants of a valve job, right? So this is the seat where it contacts the intake valve. and this is your top right here, and here's your bottom. You can still see there's a little bit of an angle here, and there's a little bit of an angle there. All right, it doesn't look terrible, but this guy here, now on the exhaust side, we got a different story. I can barely detect a little bit of an angle right here. There doesn't seem to be an upper angle here, so and there's some pitting as well. So I'm gonna have to take some material out to clean that up. All right, so let's get started. All right, first up, I've got some Dichem steel blue layout fluid. All right, I'm gonna use that, and I'm gonna paint the valve seats with it. All right, the kit I'm using is from Neway Manufacturing. All right, these pieces are going to be specific to your engine, so I've got 3 different cutters here. Actually, one of them has cutters top and bottom. All right, and let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we want to do is select a pilot. All right, so I've got the correct size pilot right here. Make sure that's clean. And we're going to start off with the intake valve. So the pilot gets inserted. And then you give it about half a turn once it's in. And then there's 3 angles, right? So Neway says the first angle that you cut is the bottom angle, all right? Or the top angle as the head's installed, but it's going to be this guy right here, all right? So that's the first angle we're going to cut. And on this engine, that is a 60-degree angle, all right? So you just want to ease the cutter down there. Don't drop it, because if you do, that will absolutely chip your seat. And you're going to spend some time having to work that out, all right? Now, the kit comes with a T-handle, all right? So you just want to go ahead and turn nice and easy, all right? It takes a few iterations before you get the feel for it, all right? You don't want to stop in the same spot on each turn. And if you find that it's not going smoothly, sometimes it helps if you change your position, you stand up, and you're not putting a whole lot of pressure on the cutter, all right? And then after a few turns, I'm going to pop this off. And that's actually not looking too bad. I'm going to give it a little bit more, a few more turns, and then that's probably going to be good. Now, it probably goes without saying, if you're going to do any valve guide work, you do that first, all right? So obviously the pilot locates on the valve guide. So if you're going to replace your valve guides, if you're going to install valve guide liners, if you're going to hone them out, ream them out, that gets done first, all right? Because sometimes when you're working on your valve guides, you change the angle, and if you change your angle slightly on the valve guide, then the seat that you cut before you did the work is not necessarily going to match what it should be after the work is done, okay? So my valve guides are already done, and so we are proceeding. All right, now that's obviously why we put the Dichem in there. You can see where you've cut. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut this top angle right here, all right? This is the 15-degree angle. Now you may have to move your cutters a little bit, all right? They're adjustable, all right? But I've already got these set up for the intake valve, so let's go ahead and get started. And again, that's you're supposed to do these in order, and this is the second one that Neway wants you to do, all right? This one is moving nice and smooth. Sometimes they feel a little rough, but it's nice and smooth, and it's not going to take much work, I don't think. All right, that actually looks pretty good. I think I'm going to need to make it a little wider though, so I'm going to go a little bit more, all right? Because I'm looking at the width of this right here. There is a spec for that, and let's see what we've got here. Yeah, I've got 112 thousandths right there, and the spec is anywhere from 65 to 95 thousandths. So if I went ahead and cut that third angle right here, all right, and that's where the valve is going to contact the seat. If I went ahead and cut that one right there now, it's going to be too wide. So let me do a few more passes on the top here. Sometimes you got to use a screwdriver just to get that guy coming out. You don't need to use a lot of pressure. There it goes. All right. I still think that the I'm going to be a little bit too wide there, but let's go ahead and get it started. All right. So the last angle right here is a 30 degree. All right, and that is actually different than the exhaust. So on this engine, the top and the bottom angles are the same, but the actual seat angle is going to be different. So on the intake valve on this engine, it takes a 30 degree cutter. All right, so let's go ahead and get that done. All right, and as you can see, I've still got little areas where there was some pitting, I guess, some minor pitting. And I need to take off a little bit more die chem, so give it a few more times, and then we'll go ahead and check it again. Yeah, getting close, but still not done. Yeah, Neway sends you a little brush too, to clean the cutter off with in between iterations. Getting close, but I've still got some die chem in this area right here that hasn't come off. All right, let's get it a few more tries. All right, this is the area that I need a little bit of work on. If you can see, there's still some die chem in this area right here. All right, which means that I haven't gotten down to the actual surface there. Getting closer, but still a little bit more work to do. I'm going to go one more time. All right, that's got it. Now, there's still a little bit more die chem right here, all right? And I'm gonna go back, and I think the seat is gonna be too wide anyway. So, let's see. This is not real easy to measure, but yeah, I'm getting 117 thousandths. So, in order to narrow down that seat, then we're just gonna have to work on the other angles a little bit, all right? So I'm getting 117 thousandths basically from here to here. All right, so I just need to take a little bit more material off of the top and maybe a little bit more at the bottom to get that within spec. All right, down to 95 thousandths. All right, a wider seat is not going to seal as well as a narrow seat. So let me work a little bit on the top. This is the one that likes to stick a little bit. Just take a little tiny nudge from the screwdriver. There it goes. Let's get another measurement here. Yeah, still just a hair over 100 thousandths there. So I've got some more material to take out just to narrow that down. Let's work on the top again. Making progress, but I'm still not there yet. Let me take a little bit out the bottom again. Right. Yeah, we're right at 95 thousandths now. I'll remove a little bit more material because 95 thousandths is the absolute top end of the spec. All right, I'm getting 91 thousandths. I think I'm going to take one more pass at it on the top here, and then we're going to call it good. All right, one last measurement. All right, I'm getting about 88 thousandths there. All right, so I'm going to hold what I got. So what we've got here is we've got fresh angles here, here, and here. All right, and there's no more die chem visible, and the seat itself looks like it's in good shape. There's no evidence of any pitting or anything. So now it's time to move on to the exhaust. Now the only thing that needs to be done from here is we're going to go ahead and lap the valves. And you know, some folks say if you've got a good valve job you don't need to lap them, but it just takes a few minutes, so we're going to go ahead and lap those after we're done cutting this exhaust seat. All right, moving on to the exhaust valve, and I think this one's going to take some work. All right, the guide goes in, give it half a turn, quarter of a turn, something like that. And again, we're going to start with the deepest angle. All right, so we're going with the 60 degree first. Yeah, this one feels nice and rough. I can tell, or I can feel the pitting in there. All right, getting a little smoother, a little better, but still feel it. So there are some pits that I can see in here that I want to smooth out a little bit, but I mean, the valve doesn't actually touch that area, but still, let's see if we can clean it up just a little bit more. It's not perfect, but that'll work for now. Now, next up is this angle right here, all right, at the bottom of the seat or the top of the seat, depending on which way you're looking at it, all right. And to do that, we're going to have to move the cutters in some, all right, because this is put in place for the intake valve. All right, the intake valve's a lot larger. So Neway gives you this tool, and I know from experience roughly where they need to be, but you need to get these pretty precise. So let me go ahead and move them in some and see how close I am. All right, starting to make a little bit of progress here, but I still need a fair amount of work. You can see why the cutter has to be adjusted just right here because of the, I mean, there's basically no room here between this first angle and the actual cylinder head. All right, so there's the cylinder head and there's the seat. So you got to have the cutter adjusted just right to get that angle. All right, now I've swapped over. I've got the 37.5 degree cutter on here, and I'm going to cut the angle where the valve actually contacts the seat. Yeah, this one's not happy. There's some pitting there. All right, now you can see here, there's still a little bit of pitting in this area, still some die chem here, some die chem there, but we're making progress. Yeah, still got some pitting over here. Getting kind of close. Let me hit the bottom and the top angles again. The width is about right. I've got 87 thousandths on that one. So, but I still got some imperfections that I need to take out. All right, but we're getting close. All right, let's go back to the 37.5 again. Almost there. Still got a little bit of roughness here, still got a little bit of die chem there. Hit it one more time and then measure again. So I've gotten rid of all the roughness in this area. The die chem is gone, but in doing so, now the seat looks like it's probably a little wider than it was. So let me go ahead and measure that and see where we're at. Yeah, I'm getting 95 thousandths here, which is the max permissible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the top again, all right, or the bottom. I forget which one it is, you know. So first I'm going to hit this guy right here, and then I'm going to go down there into the bottom, all right, deeper in. How about that? Didn't look like that made much of a difference, but if I catch the bottom there, I should be good. All right, let's do one more round on the top, and then we'll hit the bottom. Yeah, I'm getting right about 91 thousandths there. So we made a little bit of progress, so I'm just going to hit the bottom and call it good. Alright, nice and smooth. Feel that removing some material. Alright, I'm getting 86 thousandths, which sounds mighty fine to me. Alright, so now on both the intake and the exhaust, we've got 1, 2, 3 angles that are obvious. Alright, I've got no more pitting in there. I've got all the die chem removed. So, valve job is complete. All right. Now the next thing we've got to do is lap the valves. Now, one thing I will tell you is that sometimes when you're lapping the valves, you do notice that you missed a spot. All right, so don't go ahead and don't put all your stuff away, you know, on a high shelf where you can't get to it. So keep your cutters handy, because you may need to go back again and touch up some of the seats. Okay, time to lap some valves. All right, so we've already got the valve job done, but that doesn't guarantee that we've got a good seal between the valve and the valve seat. Right, so lapping is going to confirm that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some brake cleaner, and I'm going to clean off the valve and make sure if there's anything left from the manufacturing process that's all gone, all right? So we're starting with a nice clean valve, and these are new valves, okay? Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this clover lapping compound, all right? Loctite clover compound is what it's called. And then I'm going to apply that to the area of the valve that's going to contact with the seat. All right, now once I've got enough compound there, I'm going to go ahead and dip the valve stem in some oil. All right, we don't want to do this with a dry valve stem. And we're going to drop it in. Then I've got this lapping stick, got suction cups on each end. All right, I'm going to pick the right size suction cup. In this case, I'm going to use the smaller cup. And I'm going to lap for 3 minutes, all right? So I'm going to check my watch. And here's sort of the rhythm that I use, all right? Like so, pick up, turn 90 degrees or so. Like so, pick up, turn, all right? And I do that for 3 minutes. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on this, and frankly, I can't, because if I put too much pressure on it, the suction cup just comes off, all right? So I'm letting the compound do the majority of the work here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and speed through the footage at this point because I'm just gonna do the same thing for 3 minutes. All right, 3 minutes are up. Valve comes out. Then let's go ahead and wipe the excess compound off the valve. All right, got everything wiped off the valve. And there you can see it, that dull area right there, that is where the valve is contacting the seat, all right? You just want to make sure that you get a nice uniform area all around the valve, and I do, all right? You're not likely to see any problems there. Here's where you're going to see the problems, all right? If there are any, is once you wipe the compound off of the seat, you want to look for the same thing on the seat, all right? Is it dull and is it gray all the way around? And it is. On this cylinder head, they all came out nice, all right? On the other cylinder head, I think I had 2 seats that needed a little bit more work. All right, there were some areas that that were shiny in the gray. All right, so I needed to take out a little bit more material, and so I got the cutters out again, redid the seat, and then relapped them. All right, so you know, the reason we lap valves, one, is to make sure that you've got a good area between the a good contact between the valve and the valve seat. And another thing too is it'll show you any problems that you might have, all right? So if I hadn't lapped the valves on that other cylinder head, I would have had 2 valves that were probably going to leak a little bit, and that's not good. Okay, now it's time to assemble the cylinder heads, get them bolted on the engine. Okay, next thing what we've got to do is we've got to give this cylinder head a good cleaning, all right? So this head has been surfaced, all right? We've got valve lapping compound to worry about, and we've got all that debris that we got when we did the valve job. So there are a lot of metal shavings hiding in nooks and crannies here, all right? So I'm going to take some wire brushes, I'm going to take a bunch of brake cleaner and some compressed air, and I'm going to give this cylinder head a really, really good cleaning. Hey, I got to jump in here with a clarifying comment or two, all right? Folks, you don't have unlimited material to work with on your valve job. If you continue to cut, eventually you're going to have valve recession problems, and that means your valve is too far down in the seat, all right? And there's a spec for that. We get into details on episode 15 of the Bulletproof Garage, but just understand, all right, you just can't continue to cut and continue to cut in the search for the perfect valve job, because eventually you're going to have to replace your seats. Okay, the second point is on hardness, all right? Understand that your seats are going to have a particular hardness, and sometimes that doesn't extend very deep into the actual seat. All right, so what may happen is that when you're doing your valve job, if you cut too deep, you're going to get into that softer material. And while you may have a beautiful looking valve job when you're done, it may last 100 miles or so, because your valves are just going to beat the heck out of it, okay? And then you're going to need to pull your heads off, and you're going to need to get new seats installed and do your valve job all over again, okay?
All right, almost done with the heads. Got one more valve to install. So as a reminder, we just finished lapping the valve, so we want to make sure all the lapping compound is off. So just give it a quick shot of brake cleaner, all right? Give that a second to dry. Once that's dried, I'm going to dip the valve stem in some regular motor oil. I'm going to insert the valve in the valve guide. All right, got that. All right, now we're working, this is the exhaust valve here. And so I'm going to go ahead and mic the height. I'm using comp 9, 10, 16 springs, okay? So these are aftermarket springs because I'm using an aftermarket cam. These are supposed to be set up at 1.800, all right? So go ahead and install my mic, retainer, locks, and this is likely going to need, oh yeah, it's going to need a shim or two. I've got 1.875, so I need about 75 thousandths of shims, and I know how I'm going to do that because I've had a few of that height. All right, so that comes off. There goes the mic. All right, the rotator comes out. This shim is 55 thousandths, all right? And this shim is 15 thousandths, all right? So that gives me 70 thousandths, and that is good enough for government work. You don't need to nail it right on, all right? So we're at 1.795, if my math is correct. The valve rotator goes on. Then the seal. All right, got that. Now the valve spring, retainer, on with locks. Okay, so I have redone the valve seals. I got everything together, and I got to thinking I didn't like the way that it went together. So there were two problems, one on the intake and one on the exhaust. And on the exhaust valves, I just went with an umbrella seal, all right? The umbrella seal moves up and down with the valve, all right? They're pretty basic. But the problem was that the umbrella seals that I used were really pretty tight for the comp 910 springs that I installed, and they were getting hung up in the springs, and I was worried that that inner coil was going to chew these up, all right, and cause some problems on down the line. All right, so what I did there is I went ahead with some positive seals. These are Viton, I don't know how you pronounce it, V-I-T-O-N, okay? And these are positive seals, and the positive seals just sit on top, or you press them down on top of the valve guide boss there, all right? And I'll show you how to install that in a second. But they do not move up and down with the valve, all right? They stay on top of the valve guide. Now, on the intake side, I had positive seals, all right? But they didn't fit very well. They were really loose. And I noticed that after I was checking to make sure, you know, the valves were moving up and down fine, you know, where you whack the retainer with a dead blow hammer, these just popped off, all right? And so looking at it closely, the intake valve guide boss has been machined, all right? And that was originally, I think, around 0.626, and now it's machined down to 0.562. I don't believe that's factory. I believe that happened when they were rebuilt. So what I did is I sourced some aftermarket seals, all right? And so these are Viton and metal as well, all right? And those need to be driven on, all right? So let's show you how we go ahead and install these. So on the exhaust side, we'll do that first, all right? I like to clean the guide off, the outside of the guide, because I don't want any oil in there. I want it to stay in place. And I just push these on. You see this there's a little spring here, and the spring opens up as you push it on. So, and there's also this spring right here, and I take that off before I put the seal on, all right? And I just press it on with my hands. It takes a little bit of effort. And then you sort of have to look down in here to see if it's seated all the way. Now I can look and see that that is all the way down. You basically want to see the top of the valve guide right here where it meets the lip, all right? And so that's good to go all the way around. So I've dipped the valve in a little ATF. All right, slide it back through, and then I just kind of work the spring on there. These seals did not come with a little sleeve or a condom or whatever you call that thing that you slide over the tip of the valve to protect the seal from getting cut. So I would assume it's not needed. You probably need those with that harder material, the PTFE seals, okay? Okay, let's go ahead and install the intake seal. All right, so first thing, just remove this little spring here, all right? And then I'm going to go ahead and push this on a little bit by hand, get it started. Take a socket that fits on the outside and just go ahead and tap it in. All right, and you'll hear the tone change just slightly when you get it in place. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put the spring back on. All right, dip the valve in some automatic transmission fluid, and the same with the exhaust side. The intake side did not come with sleeves either. All right, and so there you go. Positive seals installed. They're nice and snug on the intake and the exhaust. Now I'm just going to put the springs back on, and the heads are assembled.
All right, folks, that is it for this episode of Project Brutus on the Bulletproof Garage. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you found it helpful and informative, all right? Stay tuned for more episodes on our 7.3 IDI turbo build. We've got one more episode at least on assembly of the engine, all right? And then we're gonna move on to the transmission. Now, you can't see right now, but the transmission is actually on a transmission jack underneath Brutus. So hopefully I can get that installed when the rain lets up later today. All right, folks. Oh, I have one request for you. Hey, post up a comment, all right? I love interacting with y'all, all right? Even if it's a comment to say, hey, Scott, you're doing this wrong, all right? Hey, I am not perfect by any stretch. Just ask my wife, all right? But seriously, post up a comment and let's get some back and forth going on this episode, all right? Thanks, and we'll see you next time on the Bulletproof Garage.